Hello there. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or if you've downloaded the free Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app, which is, again, free, is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. And yes, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts on them at 719-247-1313. It is good to be back. Day away from the show. Yeah, you didn't even realize I was gone, did you? Talk about where I was and what I was doing, or attempting to do, anyway. Coming up in a little bit, but let's start with what the Nuggets attempted to do last night, which was win a pivotal Game 5. They did not, if you had not heard. But one guy did do his part, and his name is Nikola Jokic. And Game 5, Nikola Jokic is starting to become a thing. In his career, Nikola Jokic has averaged 28 points a game, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists in Game 5s. The Nuggets, up until last night, were 11-2 in those Game 5s, including unbeaten when the series is tied 2-2, but nothing lasts forever. And so did the Nuggets' unbeaten record in Game 5s of series that are tied 2-2. It all lined up for the Nuggets to steal one back in OKC. All of those numbers, Jokic's performance, 44 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. But it didn't happen. Why? You know why. That last number, 5, it's not enough. 44 points and 15 rebounds is more than enough. 5 assists is not. And it's one of the more confounding things about this basketball team is that a guy can go 44 and 15, and because he only has 5 assists, they lose. But that was the case last night, and that's been the case in so many Nuggets games. Nikola Jokic last night needed someone, anyone really. We don't care. Murray, Porter, Gordon, Brown, Westbrook, somebody to come along for the ride, somebody to chip in the last 10 minutes of that basketball game. And the only person in a Nuggets uniform that did his part down the stretch of that basketball game was Nikola Jokic. 3 Nikola Jokic field goals were all the Nuggets could muster down the stretch as they saw what was a double-digit lead completely evaporate on them. Meanwhile, 5 different Thunder players scored down the stretch, scored field goals, because this is important. Field goals. They needed buckets. The way that these NBA playoffs are officiated, you can't expect every time to get bailed out by the officials. Nuggets made some free throws late in the game. They needed field goals. They needed threes. And again, it was only Jokic that was contributing with the ridiculous Sombor shuffle where he turns completely away from the basket, spins, puts it up off of one leg, and makes it. Jokic can make that shot, but no one could make things like corner threes, supposedly the easiest shot in basketball to make. The Nuggets missed 3 of them in that fourth quarter. They only made 1 3-pointer. They only made 1 shot outside of the painted area in the fourth quarter, and that belonged to Nikola Jokic. Anyone chipped in at any point down the stretch, the Nuggets probably win that game. And once again, it was the depth, and I'm not talking depth like 10, 12 people deep. 5 guys. Hartenstein had 2 buckets. Chet had a bucket. SGA had a couple. And then, of course, Lou Dort. Lou Dort, the best example of what I'm talking about. I didn't even know that guy was capable of shooting 3-pointers. And he made 3 massive ones down the stretch of that basketball game. I've talked about how Nikola Jokic needs to be back to the height of his powers, and he was last night. He only get 5 assists because he only passed it 5 times. The advanced metrics say he had a potential for 20 assists last night. Now, you're not going to get every one of them. All I'm asking is for like 2. Nikola Jokic last night, if he goes 44, 15, and 7, the Nuggets win that game. He had 20 passes that could have resulted in assists in that basketball game. And only 5 shots went down. So, yes, getting Nikola Jokic back to the super efficient, high-scoring, big rebounding game was priority number 1. That had to happen before anything else could happen. But that still, in and of itself, is not enough to beat a team like the Thunder. And the Nuggets got nothing else. And all of this is much more frustrating to think about when you consider that the Denver Nuggets were up for much of that game. They got down early by 10, but they battled back, had a lead at the end of the first quarter. They led in the second, led in the third, had a good lead going into the fourth quarter. And then 7 straight minutes without a field goal. And the only guy up until Jamal Murray made an uncontested layup in garbage time that could get a bucket was Nikola Jokic. So the big question is how? How does this happen? How does such a thing happen? Which brings the most, and we've reached a tipping point with this. We got to be done with the everybody's tired. We got to be done with this. It's the playoffs. Everyone's playing 82 games into the first round and now into the second round. Everybody's tired. It seems at times that the Denver Nuggets are uniquely predisposed to getting tired and nobody else is. Like the short turnaround. Like that was garbage. The 36-hour turnaround from game 3 to game 4, that was garbage on the part of the NBA, no doubt about it. Oklahoma City had to deal with it too. Everyone keeps going back to, they have to be tired. That's why they're tired. They need to bring in the bench. What bench? What bench are we referring to? So here's the thing. You know what? I don't even want to argue whether the Nuggets were tired late in that game. Maybe they were. But the bet that David Adelman made was in the first part of that fourth quarter. He didn't go to the bench. And that's when everyone said, oh, you got to go to the bench. You got to get people rest, including Nikola Jokic, by the way. Which is stunning to me considering that non-Jokic minutes exist. Let me get David Adelman's thoughts when he was asked about potential fatigue late in the game. And listen here, because I don't think that he buys that was the reason why they faltered down the stretch.
If it is fatigue, that's on me. I'm deciding who's going to run it and who's going to be out there. So, if guys were tired or had tired legs, that's the decisions I'm making. So I like the group that we had. We had a good rhythm there going to the fourth, and I thought we sustained it early.
David Adelman saw that the Nuggets were up what was it, 12 early in the fourth quarter. And rather than pulling his starters or starter, Jokic, which is, but he's the only one that contributed down the stretch. So why are we even having a discussion about whether Jokic was tired? If he was tired, he could fool me. I mean, is that what this is? That Jokic had to score more than he did? But again, maybe they were tired at the end of the game. But what I focus on is that if David Adelman at the start of the fourth quarter, with the Nuggets, with the game really teetering here, is going to pull Nikola Jokic and maybe Jamal Murray or maybe Aaron Gordon or some combination and go to the bench, he would be guaranteeing that the Nuggets would give up that lead. That's what sitting Nikola Jokic does. It guarantees that any lead you have will be gone by the time he checks back into the game. What David Adelman tried to do last night, and I'm putting out there, and then you can tell me if he chose right. The bet he was making is if we get a couple more buckets here and just get us to like the 10 to 8 minute mark and we're up by 15, it's over. I don't need all of these guys down the stretch if we take care of business now. We get so fixated on the last 2 minutes, but there are 2-minute segments throughout the game that are just as important. David Adelman was trying to push it when his team was hitting shots, when they were feeling good. They weren't fatigued. Nobody thought that the Nuggets were fatigued at the end of the third quarter. He was trying to push it and win the game right then and there. And it didn't work. I mean, that's what you have to say. It did not work. But I see the vision. I understand what David Adelman was trying to do last night. And there were opportunities. There was one stretch. Where did I put my paper? It's behind me. Can't reach it. There's a sequence where both teams are like turning it over back and forth. That if Jamal Murray would have hit a three, and he had performed well through 3 quarters, it wasn't like he had a bad game up until that point. If he hits a three, I promise you Oklahoma City's done. It's a wrap. But the Nuggets can't knock down that shot, and it just gives, and then back the other way, Lou Dort hits a three. And that juncture completely flipped the game. So if we're going to talk about David Adelman and the way he handled the team, just know that when things were clicking, he wanted to stay with the team he had on the floor. And the Denver Nuggets got open looks. They got 3 corner threes. Jamal Murray attempted a handful of shots in the fourth quarter. If you watch the game, the Nuggets should have put it away exactly when David Adelman thought that they could. They just didn't knock down shots. And then fast forward to the last couple minutes, yeah, the Nuggets weren't able to get open. Maybe they were tired. But it's, they say it's a make or miss league, and it's so true, but it's the most infuriating thing to say, right? Because it's the basketball equivalent of it is what it is. It's a make or miss league. If you miss shots, you're going to lose games. We want to affix something else to it. We don't like that explanation. But that's what happened. Look at the process. The thought process from David Adelman, to me, was right. The game was right there to be had. And he was trying to, and forgive the vivid imagery, trying to put the proverbial foot on their throats and end the game. And time again, player after player, not named Nikola Jokic, failed to meet the occasion. And meanwhile, Lou Dort, of all people, is knocking down threes. Maybe the Nuggets couldn't ultimately win the game in the last couple of minutes because they were tired, but there was a juncture not that long before that where they were perfectly fine and they just were missing shots. And the bottom line is you can't do that. You can't miss shots. If you get open looks, you have to knock them down. You have the best passer in all of basketball setting it up on a silver platter for you, and they're missing shots. That's why they lost last night. Christian Brown shot the ball terribly. Michael Porter was bad again. Russell Westbrook, who people seem to want in the lineup over Michael Porter, and I don't necessarily disagree. He was 1 of 7. That's the ultimate fix, to go to Russell Westbrook when he was 1 of 7? They missed shots. They were getting good looks. Nikola Jokic was playing out of his mind. The supporting cast let him down. Pure, simple fact. And once again, Oklahoma City's supporting cast, which is superior to the Nuggets, they came through. And that's what has to happen in a game like that. It can't be just Jokic. And when it mattered the most, it was just him. An all too familiar refrain for the Denver Nuggets the last couple of years. There's more on this game I want to get to. In the meantime, do you think that David Adelman mishandled that fourth quarter? I don't think he did. I think the players that he entrusted failed him and failed Nikola Jokic. That's my takeaway. Get yours at 719-247-1313. Just getting going on this Wednesday edition of Drive Time Sports here on Extra Sports 1300. Cheer on Switchbacks FC at Widener Field this Saturday as they host Pittsburgh Riverhounds for Armed Forces Night. The first 2,000 fans through the gates at 6 will get a limited edition Switchbacks headband. And then after the match, experience a very special fireworks show. Tickets are selling out. Buy yours now at switchbacksfc.com. And I can confirm that. I was at Switchbacks training earlier today and talking with some of the folks in the ticket office. And yes, tickets getting harder to come by the second. If only you knew someone that had the hookup. Oh, wait, you do. Me. I have tickets to give away later. But if you don't want to leave it to chance, switchbacksfc.com sooner rather than later. We'll get back to the Denver Nuggets and the Game 5 loss and where they go from here. Also got to talk about the article ESPN posted about Russell Westbrook. But tonight's a unique night. Tonight is a night, maybe more than any other. Super Bowl is probably one of these nights as well. But if you want any indication or any reason why or how the NFL is king and we are flat out obsessed with it, tonight is a great night. Tonight is the poster child for this because the schedule gets released tonight. And the thing about the schedule is that we already know who our favorite teams are going to be playing. We know who the Broncos are going to be playing. We've known that for months, who they would be playing. We just want to know the order. This is the order in which these games will be played, and we obsess. And by the way, not chastising anyone, I'm interested in it as much as you are. But it just shows why the NFL is king, because we care deeply about the order in which these games will be played, even though we already know which teams and the location, by the way. Well, not completely the location, because some games are going to be overseas, but we know who the Broncos will play at home, and we know which games are away games for them. They might have to go to London or Germany or Brazil in order to play these games, but we know they won't be in Denver. We already know all that. We just want the order. Give us the order. So as much as I am interested in it, like you are, there are really only a couple of things that I immediately look at. And tomorrow, certainly we can go through based on the evidence we have and discuss how you think the Broncos will do this upcoming season. But really the two things that I am going to look out for once this schedule is released in its entirety: rest advantages and the first month. That's what I care most about. That's what I am like. The other day, Chiefs, Broncos on Christmas. Certainly that is interesting. And it certainly has an impact on my Christmas plans, but it doesn't necessarily impact how I feel about how the Broncos season is going to go. Things that I think are more of a telltale sign, or can be: which games will the Broncos have extra time to rest and prepare, and what games will they not? And then I do want to know their opponents right out of the gate. So on the first part of that, I say it can impact, right? Rest advantage. What's interesting is it really didn't impact the Broncos last year. Not the way you think. Broncos had 5 games in which their opponents had more rest than they did. The Broncos went 4-1. There were 3 games where the Broncos had the advantage and they were 1-2. Again, it's not the be all end all, but it means something. And in the Broncos, certainly, or any NFL team, very much cares which weeks they will have rest advantages. And you think back to the scheduling late in the year when the Broncos were offered to either flex the Charger or the Bengal game, and they wanted to flex the Charger game so they'd get more time on the back end to get ready for Cincinnati. Didn't work out, but they did care. So I care. So I'll be looking out for which games the Broncos have this year in which they'll have more time to prepare or less time compared to their opponent. But the biggest thing is who they play right out of the gate. Because especially in a league like the NFL, with so much parity, but almost always so much volatility, right? The way injuries happen, teams that we fall in love with because of their offseason turn out to be duds, and teams that we're not even paying attention to are shocking us by Halloween. So I don't care so much about what happens beyond like the first month. But I think it does matter who Denver has and where early. Case in point, last year, the Denver Broncos had to play two good defenses right out of the gate as they were putting Bo Nix out there for his first NFL games. Right? And you saw how those went. So it mattered that the Broncos were going to Seattle week 1. It mattered that they were getting the Steelers in week 2 because they had this rookie quarterback. Now this year, it appears the shoe will be on the other foot. Because not only do the Broncos get a pretty good opponent, good meaning good for their success, that team just so happens to have the first overall pick who was a quarterback and will probably be making his NFL debut. Jordan Schultz reported last night that the Denver Broncos will open week 1 at home against Cam Ward and the Titans. Of all the potential matchups the Broncos could have had, this actually might be the best one. Because now you have the Broncos defense, right? Which is less certainly you feel better about the Broncos defense after the offseason than you do the offense. So you have the Broncos defense that was very good last year, has been improved with draft picks and with free agents. Blitz happy, pressure happy defense at home against Cam Ward, who's making his first NFL start. I can't think of a more advantageous matchup for the Broncos to get off to a 1-0 start than that. And look, things might change. I mean, knock on wood, you never hope for injuries, especially with what we're seeing in the NBA right now. You see how much injuries suck and how much injuries can change things. But as of right now, Cam Ward will be making his NFL debut against one of the most blitz-happy, pressure-getting defenses in all the land, and he'll have to go on the road to do it. This immediately is a better week 1 for the Broncos than last year's was. So you get that, and then you see what the next couple of games are. Are the Broncos going to get more games at home? Are they going to have any rest advantages? Are they getting any other teams that may have some newness to them? Right? Some teams like, I don't know, maybe the Fighting Travis Hunters. Could they get them early as a young head coach and Liam Cohen's trying to get his feet under him? Could they potentially get Dallas? Even though Brian Schottenheimer's been around a million years, this is his first head coaching gig. I can point you to Nathaniel Hackett's first game as a head coach as a example of how NFL coaches might not be completely locked in and ready to go the first couple weeks of the season. So Dallas, Jacksonville, those could potentially be two early games that you'd rather get a team early than later. I don't know if there's a bad spot to get Jacksonville, to be honest, but Dallas, we know what they are. They're going to be a double-digit win team. They are going to be one of the better teams in the NFC, regardless of who their head coach is. But as Brian Schottenheimer is starting to, put his stamp on the team, there may be some growing pains. So getting Dallas earlier rather than later might be a good thing for the Denver Broncos. Couple of other ones. As you know, both New York teams have new quarterbacks. Probably better to get them earlier than later. Although I don't know how high optimism is with a lot of people when it comes to Justin Fields with the Jets or Russell Wilson with the New York Giants. And that potentially back on the table, by the way. What we didn't get last year, which was Russell Wilson returning to Denver. Could get it this year. But once you go beyond like a month, then it's like, who knows? I mean, how different did the Atlanta game end up being than what you may have expected going in? I didn't think Indianapolis would be good. I didn't expect Indianapolis to be as god-awful as they were. So there's an example of a team that I had a different perception of. So rest advantages, including the bye week, most notably the bye week. Who the Broncos get early. And then everything else is just fun fodder for talk shows, right? Because who knows? I mean, by the time the Broncos played the Chiefs the second time, the Chiefs played their JV squad. So, and there are multiple games down the stretch that could be like that. We don't know who's going to be around. We have our perceptions of certain teams, but those can change the stakes. So the later in the season it is, the less I really care too much, unless it's like Christmas and then some accommodations will have to be made. Not by me, by my family, in order to allow me and my brother, who's a Cowboys fan, to watch the game unfettered by normal holiday fanfare. So that's what I'm looking at tonight. But we know Christmas Day, Christmas night, I should be exact because there's a very good chance that the Nuggets are playing at the very exact time. But we know Broncos and Chiefs on Christmas. I think it's been confirmed that the Broncos will be going to London to play the Jets. Perhaps that's just a report I saw. And then we know the openers being widely reported now will be in Denver against the Fighting Cam Wards. Pretty good first game. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow when the whole schedule is out. The beginning of the season, I think, is going to be very important to the Denver Broncos. They did not get off to a great start last year. Now, to their credit, they were able to overcome it. But if you're looking for a way for the Broncos to take that next step to maybe challenge for the AFC West, I think in one way, as far as the schedule goes, Broncos got to get off to a better start than 0-2. They got to hit the ground running, and it looks like the NFL has given them at least a week one matchup that they can do that. Take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. By the way, Westwood One is doing a schedule release show, which you can hear right after me here on Extra Sports 1300 if you want to tune in and follow along. Coming up next, let's talk about a different Russell Westbrook. Why Aaron Gordon was in no mood to talk about the Nuggets' loss and only wanted to talk about his relationship with Russell Westbrook. Join Armed Forces Bank for Tee Up for Heroes Friday, June 20th at Antler Creek Golf Course. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this event is open to all skill levels, and every swing supports Tunnel to Towers Foundation. It's $125 per player. Sponsorships as well, starting at $100. If you want more info or to sign up, Extra Sports 1300.com. Nuggets lose a pivotal Game 5 of their series with the Oklahoma City Thunder last night, but yet Aaron Gordon was in no mood to discuss the loss. He wanted to talk about something else.
Really, I don't feel like talking about the game. Earlier, I caught wind of an article that came out about Russell Westbrook in our locker room after Game 2, which was a completely arbitrary article and pointless and unnecessary by whoever it was that put it out. Russ is one of the most talented basketball players that has ever played the game of basketball. And quite frankly, he's been great for us all year long. We're brothers. We spend more time with our team than we do with our own family. Of course, there's going to be disagreements, but that conversation wasn't for anybody other than our own group and the internal workings of our locker room. So that article is just so arbitrary and so far from the truth. Russ has been amazing for us. And not only is he a great basketball player, but he's an even better human being. And he's going to continue to be great for us, and he's going to make a huge impact, and he's going to help us win these next 2 games. And that's all I got to say, guys.
So, what is the article that Aaron Gordon is referring to? Well, it was written by Ramona Shelburne, and it was on ESPN, and it's titled, Why the Nuggets' Title Hopes May Hinge on the Most Volatile Player in the NBA. Now, the part of this story that Ramona Shelburne wrote, or that Aaron Gordon is referring to, is that after Game 2 of the Clippers series, Aaron Gordon reportedly exchanged some words with Russell Westbrook, was kind of getting on him a little bit about his the exact wording is a heated discussion between Westbrook and Gordon in the locker room. Gordon had challenged Westbrook on his about his attitude. Now, I have seen this happen, and this is kind of the problem, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Aaron Gordon's sentiments. Here's the problem. I read the article, and I read the next part, which somebody called Russell Westbrook immature. Here's the problem. And I think that ESPN knows that this could be part of the problem, and they're okay with it. That quote wasn't Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon didn't say to Ramona Shelburne, Russell Westbrook is immature. It says in the piece that an unnamed source, an unnamed player, said Russell Westbrook is immature. It was even an outsider. I believe the article, where did I put it? I believe the article actually says it's an outsider. Maybe one of his former teammates, maybe one of his former coaches. It wasn't attributed to Aaron Gordon, and Ramona Shelburne wrote that correctly. It does not say Aaron Gordon said this, but I have heard today with aggregators who don't pay much mind to details, including an aggregator that sits across from Colin Cowherd every day, that attributed it to Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon didn't say Russell Westbrook was immature, but you heard right there, he didn't refute the fact that he got into it a little bit with Russell Westbrook. He didn't refute that Game 2 talking. But this is where the story gets trumped up. This is where aggregators and other people who don't have an attention to detail get some of the facts wrong and presenting it as if Aaron Gordon was saying that Russell Westbrook was immature. Never said that. But that's the thing that people seize on. That's what writers sprinkle into their stories to spice them up a little bit. I'm not saying that she's making it up. Somebody told her this, but was it Aaron Gordon? No. Was it anybody in the Nuggets locker room? Didn't seem like it. And that's the problem. So I understand where Aaron Gordon is coming from because it's inflammatory language to say that Russell Westbrook is immature. This is a player that has repeatedly took his lumps, some fair, some not so much. And I would imagine that he would be quite sensitive to this, as would his wife, who took to social media to call this, quote, dirty work. How could you share and spread so many lies randomly for no reason with so much conviction? You're using his name for clickbait during the playoffs, which is ridiculous. Trust me, I know the facts about literally everything, which is what I, coincidentally, just as an aside, that's what I tell women on our first dates. I know the facts about literally everything. Normally, I let you guys tell your silly lies in peace. Enough already. Stop with the lies. Hashtag Go Nuggets. I don't fault anybody's anger towards any of this. What matters here is that the premise of what ESPN published is not wrong. It's not. Because you and I have been talking about how volatile Russell Westbrook is. Russell Westbrook talked about how volatile Russell Westbrook is just a few days ago. We're all on the same page with how unreliable he could be, how amazing he could be at times, and how he could also cost you games. We have seen that over the course of the last few weeks, dating back to the Minnesota game. And Ramona Shelburne points that out. The layup he missed against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We all know this. Russell Westbrook knows this. So this is not disingenuous. The premise of this article is actually quite spot on. Because coming out of last night, a lot of people are saying you cannot play Michael Porter anymore. Well, who are you going to play? Russell Westbrook. So therein lies exactly what Ramona Shelburne is saying. And it's, by the way, it's what I said at the beginning of this series, that the Denver Nuggets may need to lean into the Russell Westbrook revenge tour in order to beat OKC, because they have to find some variable to help them, because on paper, they're not good enough to beat OKC. They have to find something else. So what ESPN wrote, I said at the beginning of this series. So, and Russell Westbrook's wife got upset about the wording of that headline, which it's her prerogative. But the idea of the article is actually spot on. And Aaron Gordon himself is not refuting that he had to go to Russell Westbrook. What do I think is behind that? Look at other past MVPs. Look at every other past MVP in the league right now. Not a single one of them has taken on the role that Russell Westbrook has. Giannis is still the face of his team. Jokic is. Embiid is. LeBron is. Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant is. Russell Westbrook is the only former MVP right now that has been reduced to a role player role. And I got to imagine that's very difficult to take with somebody that has the level of pride that Russell Westbrook does. So if he's not in a game that's up in the air where he feels like, and by the way, it is coming from a place of he feels like he can help the team. He's trying to help the team, but it's how that manifests itself that becomes the problem. If you believe that you can help the team and you want to help the team, that's your desire, then that's great. But if you're not called upon, how you react to it is where things can get problematic. And to me, that's probably where Aaron Gordon went to him. Is like, hey, man, we need you pulling it in the same direction as us. We love you. We trust you. But tonight, it wasn't your turn. So is that immaturity? I think that's somebody trying to, flame Russell Westbrook a little bit. But really what Aaron Gordon's going at is, one, there's a snitch somewhere in the locker room, which is problematic because Aaron Gordon didn't tell this to Ramona Shelburne. But he's also going to the immature part that wasn't attributed to anybody involved with the Denver Nuggets, and it was unnamed. And that's the thing that continues to happen that is just driving athletes crazy, and I don't blame them. If you are going to impugn somebody's character and use words just to get a reaction, just to diss somebody, then you should put your name to it. You should. I agree with that sentiment. If you're just going to take pot shots with the armor of being anonymous, then you're kind of a coward. And I wish, and I can't say that we can enact this, but I wish that writers wouldn't do that. That's where I put some blame on ESPN here. Why do you have to find an unnamed source to say something mean about Russell Westbrook? Just to, as Russell Westbrook's wife indicates, get clicks. That's exactly. They're not wrong. I guess I'm sitting here on both sides and I'm saying, yep, you're right. Yep, you're right. ESPN, the premise of the article is 100% right. But I'm also on Aaron Gordon's side and the Westbrook side to say that it's a low blow for somebody who's not even in the Nuggets locker room to add color to this situation when they're not even in the locker room and doing it without putting their name on it. And I could sit here and join the rage parade and say it has to stop. I wish it would stop. It's not going to. Because it's not being made up. Somebody is telling the reporter this. I would just think that better news judgment would say, is this really somebody that I'm getting important background information to paint the story, or am I just throwing something in that's going to get more clicks? Well, I'm with everybody, but good luck on it ever changing. So where do we go from here? Well, use it. Use it, Nuggets. Everyone's already said you've lost this series. Nobody's picking them to win the next two games. So you got that. Now you got this. You got the media against you. You got the fans against you. You got everyone's against you. Use it. Win game 6 and 7. And then thumb your nose at everybody. That's all you could do. I appreciate what Aaron Gordon said. I think the snitch in the locker room is probably a bigger issue than anything that Ramona Shelburne did. The fact that somebody who knows that happened went and told her. I understand why he's going to get mad. I don't blame him. But use it. Use it as a talking point. Put it on the whiteboard. Do something. Because clearly whatever motivation you had as the Denver Nuggets outside of Nikola Jokic to win game 5 wasn't enough. So find more motivation somewhere for game 6 and potentially game 7. Speaking of, if the Nuggets get this thing to a game 7, would that put all the pressure on OKC. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports. Appreciate you tuning in, whether you're listening to the show or whether you're watching it on our social media platforms at Extra Sports 1300, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You know, the usuals. 719-247-1313 is the number you could call or text to have your say on the day's topics. Of course, the biggest one is the Nuggets losing Game 5 last night to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now their backs are up against the wall. They need to win 2 before Oklahoma City wins 1, or else the season will come to an end. And as the saying goes, at least I think it's how the saying goes, you can't win 2 games tomorrow night. Maybe I just made that up. Can't win 2 games tomorrow night. All you can win is Game 6. So worry about that, and then worry about Game 7. But I've already started to see this premise arise that if the Denver Nuggets can win Game 6, now Oklahoma City has all the pressure. And I do think that there's some truth to that. Whenever a team has a chance to close out their opponent and doesn't, the urgency level goes up a little bit. And yeah, the pressure does as well. Oh, you didn't close them out when you first had a chance. Now you got to do it again. But here's the thing. Oklahoma City's not in danger of blowing a 3-1 series lead here. So I don't know how much pressure Oklahoma City would truly feel with the fact that they took their home court. Now they're going into Denver. I think even though most people have written off Denver from winning this series, I don't think they've written off the idea of the Nuggets winning Game 6. I don't know how high expectations are that Oklahoma City is going to come into Denver tomorrow night and win. So there is kind of a feel like this thing is going to go 7. So if that's the expected path here, then how much pressure really falls on the shoulders of Oklahoma City in the same way that, well, let's say, for example, tonight, which I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, that the Celtics win tonight. Okay? Don't want to go back to Boston for a Game 7. Got to win Game 6. There's their pressure. I don't know if OKC would feel that type of pressure. But I also know what's at the heart of this. And we have to be done with this. The last 2 games, who's the team that's faltered down the stretch? Oklahoma City or Denver? It's been Denver. The Thunder, and this was Game 4, the Thunder have matured. They grew up in Game 4 because the Nuggets once again kept it close. They leaned on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Thunder did not fold. I told you that was a big win for them. And then last night, almost the same thing happened. It was the Nuggets who faltered down the stretch, not this young and plucky OKC team. So this idea that Oklahoma City is going to be so petrified to play in a Game 7, like, yeah, there's no substitute for experience. They will have never been in a Game 7 before. So I'm not saying there's no pressure on them or the pressure doesn't go up a little bit on OKC if they fail to close out the series tomorrow, but I just don't think it holds the same weight that it would have if you were talking about a theoretical Game 7 at the beginning of the series, before we saw especially the last 2 games. Because right now you can make the argument that you don't trust the Nuggets down the stretch more than you don't trust the Oklahoma City Thunder, given what you've seen the last 2 games. So some of these notions of pressure, and maybe that's what ultimately wins the day for the Denver Nuggets, I don't know that that's the case. I think just to be sure, they should play better. You know what's a more proven strategy and proven formula to win a potential Game 7? Having your players perform better than your opponent. That's what's ultimately going to win them the series. If the Denver Nuggets are going to come back in this series, it's because the players not named Nikola Jokic are going to contribute down the stretch in Game 6 and 7. The way for the Nuggets to win Game 7 is the same way for them to win Game 6. The supporting cast has got to play better. And all of this, intangible stuff about pressure and inexperience and all this kind of stuff, it's not more important than who has the better players, who has the better execution. That's been OKC the last 2 games when it's mattered, and it hasn't been Denver. So the same thing that will win the Nuggets Game 6 or Game 7 is the opposite of what cost them last night, where Christian Brown was 3 of 12, when Michael Porter was 1 of 7, when Russell Westbrook was 1 of 7, when Jamal Murray, who played pretty well through 3 quarters, ended up 10 of 27 from the field. that other stuff about pressure and, Oklahoma City not ever being in this spot, or this potential spot, I should say, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. The Nuggets got to win tomorrow night to even force a Game 7. It doesn't mean more than the players that you have executing at a high level. And the idea that you can lean on this young Oklahoma City team and they can't respond, that's out the window. They've responded in both of these games, and it's been the Nuggets who haven't. If you told me that for Game 6 and Game 7, that the two best players on the floor will be Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, I'd tell you that the Nuggets will win the game. I don't know if I believe that they will be. If you told me, well, Shea's going to be better than Jamal Murray, but it's going to be Jokic 1, Shea 2, Jamal 3, and Aaron Gordon 4, Nuggets might win that game. But last night, the best players on the floor were Jokic, followed by, down the stretch of that game when it mattered the most, were Jokic, followed by SGA, followed by Lou Dort. Maybe Lou Dort ahead of SGA. Jokic, Dort, SGA, Hartenstein, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and then maybe you get to a Denver Nuggets player. That has to change. And that has to change now. We'll see if there's any chance of the Thunder choking or anything like that. You got to get them in a position to do that. You got to force a Game 7. And right now there's some troubling trends out of the last two games. That would tell me I don't even know that the Nuggets are going to win tomorrow night. To extend this series, they got to improve just to get to a Game 7. So should we want a Game 7, all that? Well, they have no other choice now. Get to the Game 7, and then hopefully you figured out some things in Game 6, and hopefully Nikola Jokic sustains the level of play he had last night, and you're going to give yourself a chance to win. I just don't see us convening on Monday if all this other stuff happens. If they win Game 6, force a Game 7, and we reconvene on Monday and say, well, the Thunder were scared. Or the fact that the Thunder had never played in a Game 7 hurt them. It's a possibility. I don't think ultimately that's what it will be. If the Denver Nuggets come back and win this series, it's because that two-man game of Jokic and Murray, and oh, by the way, someone else came along for the ride as well. Aaron Gordon seems like the most logical choice there. And I think that is possible. But it's a must. It has to happen. One player that and we've been talking about this all series long. But as we get to now facing elimination, I'd be curious to see if it spurs David Adelman to do something. Michael Porter just is not giving, outside of one game in this series, he's not giving them the thing that David Adelman keeps saying he gives them. The floor spacing, the three-point shooting. We've seen one good Michael Porter game. And I'm not going to belabor the point. It's because he's injured. We don't even need to go beyond that. We don't even need to have a deeper dive into what Michael Porter has done in playoffs past. We can just leave it there. We don't even have to, criticize the guy. If you want to, we can. It certainly adds to the argument when you have a player that has repeatedly faded as the playoffs have gone on, but on top of it, and in the first thing you got mentioned, he's injured. But David Adelman keeps talking about it, and I understand why he does. He keeps talking about the floor spacing, the three-point ability. I get it. In theory, that's what Michael Porter gives you. In practice, he's not giving you that because he has one arm. And now that the season is on the brink, I wonder if it makes David Adelman do something that might be before seen as drastic. Maybe you play Peyton Watson down the stretch for some more rim protection, potentially. Maybe you play Russell Westbrook to get back into the ESPN piece and how volatile he can be, but how it feels necessary for the Denver Nuggets to try and harness that in order to win this series. Maybe now will be the time where David Adelman says, you know what, I love Michael Porter, and he's a freaking warrior for battling through, but he is a liability. He's a liability. And you can't have that when your season is on the line, when there is no tomorrow. For the Nuggets now, the next 2 days, there is no tomorrow, the next two games, tomorrow night and Sunday. But here's the other side of that coin. Do you really trust, it can't be Porter, or are you making the argument for someone not named Porter? Because I feel like this is the crux of David Adelman's problems right now. Russell Westbrook was 1 of 7 last night. He was 1 of 7. Are you guaranteeing yourself, if you play Russell Westbrook down the stretch of that basketball game instead of Michael Porter, that you win? And the answer is no. There is no guarantee. Zero zitch, no guarantee. If you play Peyton Watson, are you guaranteeing yourself better results? No. And I think it's now just about, you can't have Porter on the floor. Because Porter has, as this injury, as I'm sure been exacerbated, you've had one game in this series where Porter could be relied on. One. Have you had more than that with Russell Westbrook? Maybe. There's really no good options here. I feel like much of this is anti-Porter, just like it can't be Porter in there. I don't know who they're going to put in there because we know they have no bench. And Russell Westbrook was not good last night either. In fact, he and Porter, same. Statistically, same. I feel like so much of this is, it just can't be Porter. I don't know who it's got to be. It can't be him. And I'm saying I don't think that that's necessarily wrong to think that way. Because you've had one game. So you're essentially, if you're David Adelman, you're saying, I would rather bet on Michael Porter being the player he was in game 3 over that I will be able to get winning plays out of Russell Westbrook. Or Peyton Watson will help me win a basketball game. It seems like that's what David Adelman has banked on the last 2 games. Maybe I get that Porter that was on game 3. Maybe I get him back. I don't know how good of a bet that is, but welcome to the 2024-2025 Denver Nuggets. where it doesn't seem like there are any good options. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts. Nuggets lose game 5. Got to win 2, or else the season is over. What you up to Saturday? Want to join me for a soccer match? Switchbacks hosting Pittsburgh Riverhounds. It's Armed Forces Night. Should be a gorgeous evening, right? First 2,000 fans through the gates at 6 will get a limited edition Switchbacks headband, fireworks to follow the match. If you'd like to go, I have a family 4-pack. But that's not to alienate somebody that doesn't have a family of 4. You can literally disperse the 4 tickets to any people in your life that you would like to. Family, friends, coworkers. But I have a 4-pack of tickets to Saturday night's match if you would like them. You need to be the 13th texter to text Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313. Good luck with that. And good luck with this in a more sarcastic way. So we're coming off of the NBA draft lottery, where the Dallas Mavericks inexplicably, well, I can explic. I have my thoughts on how the Dallas Mavericks ended up with the first overall pick. Okay, but apparently if you say that, you're accusing Ernst & Young of fraud, so I don't want to do that to the fine folks of Ernst & Young. Okay, you know my thoughts on the NBA draft lottery. So it does predispose me to not take this idea well. It is being suggested that the NFL now institutes a draft lottery. And I hate it. I hate the very thought of it. In fact, I think that there should be fewer lotteries to determine who gets the number 1 pick, and we should stick with the if you are the worst team, you get the number 1 pick. The reason why this happens in the NBA now and why many people are championing NBA draft lotteries is because it curtails, in theory, tanking. Yep, Jazz looked really, really curtailed. They really tried to win as many games as they could this year. They just couldn't do it. So I think the premise of a lottery being an anti-tanking measure, I don't think it actually is. In fact, throwing aside the more incendiary things that I have said about the NBA and its draft lottery, let's just look at it on its face. I will pick one team out for you. Just at random. Philadelphia 76ers. Do you think the happenings of the draft lottery made them feel better about tanking their season once Joel Embiid got hurt, or less good about tanking their season when Joel Embiid got hurt? Because, by the way, that's exactly what they did. Once Embiid was done for the year, the Sixers tanked. And guess what? Well, a couple days ago, they were rewarded for it. They jumped teams like Washington and Charlotte and Utah, who, yes, were also tanking, but are also just terrible organizations run by people who aren't great at what they do. Actually, I should say that about Charlotte and Washington. Utah is run by a very smart person. His name is Danny Ainge, and he was tanking. He lost on purpose. That's exactly what he did. Okay? So, was Utah... The lottery has existed for many years. Has the lottery de-incentivized Utah from tanking? Seemed like they were trying their darndest this year to tank. So I don't even know that it keeps teams from tanking like they'll say it does. And meanwhile, all you're doing is just ensuring that the worst teams stay the worst teams in perpetuity. There are very few ways out of sports poverty. One, you get a billionaire owner who is just going to spend money willy-nilly to make you a winner, Steve Cohen in New York. Or you get a high draft pick and a franchise player to then build around. So you're denying these teams the opportunity to ever lift themselves out of poverty. But maybe you're a fan of Charles Darwin and you say, whatever, natural selection. They suck at what they do. They don't deserve to get the number one pick. So maybe you are a proponent of the NFL instituting the draft lottery. I am not. And a big reason why is because and you're never going to talk me out of this until you invite me in the room at the NBA draft lottery, NBA, Adam Silver, if you're listening. I think it will lead to more belief of impropriety with the league if they went to a lottery model. Now the impropriety is just totally on the teams, and they have to answer to their fan base for that. They take a monetary hit in the with people not going to the games. Like, they have to own up to that. They have to answer to their customers and say, hey, consume this garbage product. And consumers are like, no. So why would you want to shift that to the league? And for people to look at the NFL the way they do the NBA and saying the fix is in. And the answer is the NFL wouldn't. Sure, they got some ideas that I'm not totally on board with, like the number of games that are in Europe and some of this stuff that they do. Not a fan. But that's good business. That's growing the game. That's getting new fans. I don't think the NFL would ever entertain the idea of a lottery. And also, they don't have the tanking problem that the NBA does. I don't know that the lottery keeps teams from tanking. But the NBA does have a tanking problem. But again, I look at a team like Dallas. They were rewarded for all of their nonsense. They stunk once they traded Luka, and then they suffered some injuries, and they just barely got in, and they end up winning the number one pick. So they're looking at it to say, look at all these teams that just throw away an entire season. I think a bigger problem is the teams that are actually in the playoff picture that then pull the ripcord and say, we're done because we want to get in the lottery and we want to be the next Dallas Mavericks. What's a bigger problem? Teams that have a chance to win, forfeiting that chance because it's better for them to put all their eggs into the lottery basket than to be a play-in team or a 7 seed and get your teeth kicked in. So I just don't, a lottery system, I'm not in favor of it for the NFL. I don't think, if anything, what should come out of the draft lottery in the NBA is we just need to give the worst pick, the best pick, to the worst team. We just should do that. That is the best thing to do. I don't understand why people are taking it the other direction and saying we need more draft lotteries. No. We need less. We need fewer draft lotteries. The NFL does so many, they do some stuff wrong. They do more right than any other league. And they don't have a draft lottery. They may be onto something. Fewer draft lotteries, not more draft lotteries. If teams want to be terrible all season long and take the monetary hit that comes along with that for the hope that they end up with the worst pick because they'll have competition for it, then I say go for it. Go for it. Fewer draft lotteries, not more. 719-24-7-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Congratulations to Brian, who won the 4-pack of tickets to see the Switchbacks take on Pittsburgh Riverhounds on Saturday. For those who did not win or those just tuning in, tickets selling out fast. Get yours at switchbacksfc.com. So you may have noticed, you probably didn't. It's okay if you didn't. It only slightly hurts my feelings. Didn't do his show yesterday because I was out at the Broadmoor for the U.S. Senior Open Media Day. That tournament is coming to town next month. And so they had a big day planned for all of us media members, which included a round of 18 on the very same course in which these professional 20, 30, 40 plus year careered golfers play on. And I mean, it's good to have this level of self-awareness. I felt like I did already before yesterday, but just in case I had any inkling that, maybe, my kids are getting a little bit older. I have a little bit more free time. Maybe if I hit the links, couple times a week. I don't have the most demanding job. Maybe I play 9 before I come into work. And if I just work on my game a little bit, maybe get a little coaching. I know some people who can coach me up a little bit. Maybe one day in the future. I mean, golf is a lifetime sport. Maybe one day in my future, I could turn pro. Maybe. If I had any inkling that was even a theoretical possibility, it was beaten out of me to the point of being senseless yesterday. What I came away with was not any delusions of having a pro career for myself, but it is a deep, profound respect for professional golfers. Because I was riding a cart for 18 holes and I felt like I was going to die. That East course, and if you played it before, you know this, it is so long. Like the par 5s are or the par 3s are like 180 yards. The par 5s are like 1,000 yards. Did you know that? Par 5s at the Broadmoor East course are 1,000 yards. That course is so long and it's uphill and it's winding and here's the thing on top of it. Like the rough, I don't know if you've noticed this, the rough is so close to the fairway. So even if you're a little off on your drive, I'm not trying to hit in the rough, but even if I'm a little bit off, it lands in the rough. And when you go up to your ball and you think the first few holes, I started on 14 yesterday. First couple holes, I was feeling I didn't have a ton of confidence. I thought that the course was going to kick my butt, but I thought early on, maybe I can steal a couple of pars along the way. When the first ball that I hit, I think it was on the second hole, that landed in the rough. I'm like, okay, like not where I wanted to go for it, but I'm right off the fairway. I got good distance on it. I'll be fine. I walked up to that rough, and that rough, it's you need a machete to cut down the growth in that rough. It is unbelievably thick. You can't get your ball. How do these guys do it? And then they have the audacity at the Broadmoor to put sand traps not right by the green. I'm used to that. That's okay. I can navigate around that. They put it on either side of the fairway. Like, you can hit the sand before you get to the green, and then you're left with a 175-yard shot from the sand. Every sand shot that I usually take on the courses that I play on are like 10 feet. That's all I have to go. I just got to get it up and onto the green. This, I'm like, I don't even know what club to use. Do I use my driver? And mind you, this is where I'm going to take some of the power back. I am not a bad golfer. I am not. But that course is incredibly humbling. And there are going to be a bunch of dudes that are going to shoot like 7, 10, 12 under par. It's insanity to me. Because I knew the Broadmoor's a tough course, but just the little intricacies that make it so much more difficult and how these guys navigate around there. So anyway, I shot at 250 yesterday. It was a humbling experience, but fun. I mean, only golf. Like if I play basketball, this is how you know you're in an abusive relationship with the sport. But you're okay with it. If I play basketball, I go out and play a pickup game. If I miss 3 shots in a row, I will not pick up a basketball for a year. I will literally take my ball and go home. I missed 3 shots. I'm out. Forget this. Golf, I got beaten to a pulp yesterday by the Broadmoor East Course, and I want to go back out there tomorrow. Not because I think it will be any better. In fact, I know it won't be much better. But I love it so much. It is really unlike any other sport. And if you're a golfer, you know this. It is a sport that will take advantage of you, that will beat you down, which will leave you with no confidence. And at the end of it, you're like, that was the best day of my life. And it was one of the highlights. I loved every minute of it. Even though I did use, I should be careful about this because I don't know what the rules are. I did use a few expletives throughout my day. No throwing clubs. I am a gentleman. But I let that course have a piece of my mind. So anyway, thanks to the USGA for ruining my dream that I've had since 3 days ago, right before I stepped out on the Broadmoor course, that I maybe one day could be a professional golfer. But awesome opportunity. Shouts to Mike, Jay, Jerry, all part of the Tee to Green show you hear Sundays here on Extra Sports 1300. Play with them. It was an absolute blast. And I can't wait to go back. So if anyone from the Broadmoor's listening or anybody going to the Broadmoor, you need an extra for your foursome, hit me up. You know where to find me. I will go and golf that course. I will be pummeled into submission every single day for the rest of my life, being able to play that course. And most importantly, what an event it's going to be next month. I mean, some of the names that are coming in, VJ Singh, Ernie Els, Jim Furyk, Hale Irwin was there. I mean, you want to talk about a legend. Hale Irwin, Boulder's own. So, great day. Can't wait for the tournament next month. You should be there. Best thing I heard, can't sell out. But you got to get your tickets. They won't let you in without a ticket. But if you get a ticket, you're in. Whatever day you want, you'll be in. Fun stuff yesterday. and my back hurts today. I don't know if you've noticed on the video stream, like every once in a while, I got to lean to one side and lean back to the other. Took so many shots yesterday. Swung so hard. Swung harder than I've ever swung in my life. And that was just on the par threes. To the National Basketball Association. So right in line with the idiocy of suggesting that more sports do draft lotteries, this idea that, can we just put this to bed, that it is not a good idea at all for the Dallas Mavericks to offer. It's interesting. It's interesting. I'll grant them that. Should not trade Cooper Flagg for Giannis. I don't think that. That's a good idea. Not to say that Cooper Flagg is better than Giannis. He could be. But it's more what you need more than anything else, and the Denver Nuggets are a fantastic example of this. What you need more than anything in Adam Silver's NBA with this godforsaken second luxury tax apron, you need quality, cheap labor. And Cooper Flagg is ready to go now. He's ready to contribute. I'm not saying plan the parade for the Dallas Mavericks, but the guy's going to have a good rookie season. He's going to get better from there. And he's going to be cheap for like years. Think about the number of teams, including the Denver Nuggets, that would love to have one player that they don't have to pay through the nose to keep. Right? They pay Jokic, they pay Murray, they pay Gordon, they pay Michael Porter. They even pay Zeke Naji above market value just to retain the services of these people. What they wouldn't give for one young player that's on a cheap contract and they can contribute. Although I guess there's Christian Brown, but clock's ticking. Clock's ticking. Christian Brown's going to get ready to be paid handsomely. I don't know how the Nuggets are going to be able to do it. I don't think that they are. I think the next guy that you're saying the Nuggets got rid of this guy, I think it's going to be Christian Brown. I don't think they're going to be able to pay him with everybody else they're paying, but that's a story for another day. If you're the Mavericks, you get the young, talented, cheap labor, and you hang on to them for dear life. And they will hang on to him. You know why? Because part of the reason why they traded Luka is they didn't want to give him a supermax. So the Mavericks, more than any other organization, understand that if you have a player like Cooper Flagg in your grasp, you take him and you hang on to him. You don't get another supermax player and put him with your max player of Anthony Davis and the other Kyrie and the other players who have to make a lot of money. So I'm glad that kind of came and went, because I don't see why Dallas would want to do that. Now, here's the obvious joke. 4 years from now, after Cooper Flagg brings them to an NBA Finals, then trade him. Then get rid of him. That's the appropriate time to get rid of top 5 borderline generational talent. But not now. I did see, though, that Giannis wants to reportedly stay in the East. And I, for one, am all about that idea. Because the idea that Giannis is going to come to the Denver Nuggets, forget it. 0.000% chance that Giannis is going to end up a Denver Nugget. You know what is a better chance that Giannis becomes a Houston Rocket? If Giannis wants to stay in the East, stay in the East, buddy. I don't blame you. Easier path. Heck, you may even be able to get to the finals next year, even with this Milwaukee Bucks team. Jason Tatum's not playing all next year. Cleveland Cavaliers are like going through it now. They're rethinking their entire existence after losing to the Pacers. Stay in the East, totally. The last thing we need, we already got Cooper Flagg coming to the West. Stay, as many stars that want to stay in the East, stay in the East. Stay there. Toronto, Brooklyn, fine. But Toronto, Giannis wants to go to Toronto. I don't buy that. But whatever, just stay in the East. I don't care what team in the East. Go to Charlotte. The worst thing for the Denver Nuggets, the worst thing is going to be when we all realize that the Denver Nuggets can't trade anybody again this offseason. Then the second worst thing would be for Giannis to arrive on their doorstep as a member of the Houston Rockets. Or even worse, Oklahoma City Thunder. Stay in the East, Giannis. You're better off there. They'll appreciate you more. They won't appreciate it. There's too many people. There's Jokic and there's LeBron and there's Luka and now Cooper Flagg's here and it's just too Shea. There's too much. Wemby. It's too crowded. Stay over there. They'll appreciate you more. Stay in the East. Maybe stay with Milwaukee. Just saying, short term, that might not be a bad idea, given the way that the Eastern Conference is now completely upside down. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, more on the Nuggets' loss in Game 5. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports on this fine Wednesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Appreciate your patronage. Whether you're listening to the show on air, online, through the app, which is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all, or whether you're watching on our social media platforms. 719-24/7. 1313 is the number if you would like to interact with the show. Perhaps you have a thought on the three stories that are driving the show, which are right now. All right. Can't help but feel like the Nuggets let one get away. Here's story number one.
SGA has it at the point. He's got it out there by Christian Brown. Gets a pick from Hartenstein. Takes a three. Ball game. Denver's going to lose game number 5. They're down by 6, 109-103. And it's win or stay home for Denver in game number 6.
Cause on the call, Altitude Sports Radio. You heard it right here on Extra Sports 1300. It was all going so well for the Denver Nuggets. Everyone was contributing. Jokic got back to being the Jokic we all know and love. The Nuggets had a lead going into the fourth quarter, and then it all came undone. And the Denver Nuggets, as Cause so eloquently stated, are now in a no room for error type situation. But why did this happen? Because no one outside of Nikola Jokic bothered to show up for the fourth quarter. I mean, it was always on the schedule that there would be 4 quarters, but only one guy on the Denver Nuggets showed up in that fourth quarter. The Nuggets went 7 minutes without a field goal. And ultimately, the only basket that was attributed to someone not named Nikola Jokic was a uncontested garbage time layup by Jamal Murray. It's great that Nikola Jokic had 44 points. It's amazing that he had 15 rebounds. But you know as well as I do, because you watch enough Nuggets game, that 5 in the third column, it's not enough. 5 assists was all that Nikola Jokic had. And that's not because Nikola Jokic wanted to be a ball hog. It's because no one could make a shot. Jamal Murray, 10 of 24. Russell Westbrook, 1 of 7. Michael Porter, 1 of 7. Christian Brown, 3 of 12. Aaron Gordon, the story of this series, his improved three-point shooting, 1 of 5. No one came with Nikola Jokic. And I think I've been very clear about this. The Nuggets to win this series needed Jokic to be that Jokic, but they also need someone else. It can't be just him. And even in game 1, it wasn't just him, right? It was him for most of the time, and then other guys kind of joined the party late. This was the opposite. A lot of people were contributing. Not Porter, Russell Westbrook, and not Christian Brown really on the offensive end, but they had Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon was doing some things, and then it was just Jokic in the fourth quarter. Can't happen. And depth can kind of be a dirty word, right? Because people conflate it and say, well, you got to have 9, 10, 11 guys you can trust. No. Depth through the starting 5 is good enough. If you can get contributions from your starting 5 throughout it, you'll win a lot of basketball games. You don't need guys 6, 7, 8, 9. And the Nuggets have shown that, right? There have been games, even ones that Nikola Jokic hasn't been as much of a factor, where they've had 4 other starters who have stepped up, and it made up the difference. But in that fourth quarter, it was Jokic with 3 made baskets from the field, 5 different Thunder players hit buckets. SGA had a couple. Hartenstein had a couple. Lou Dort is nailing three-pointers. The biggest shots of the game came courtesy of Lou Dort. Chet had a bucket. That's the depth that OKC has. Call it role players. Call it supporting cast to avoid confusion. That's just what the Thunder need. Yes, they go deeper into their bench. But that's just bringing that up as a convenient way to blame David Adelman for not resting guys in the fourth quarter. Right? Look, Oklahoma City can go 8, 9, 10 players deep. Yeah, but David Adelman had fresh legs at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and nobody could hit shots. That's why the Denver Nuggets lost. I'm done with they're tired. Go ask New York, find your favorite New York Knicks fan. Ask him how many minutes Jalen Brunson plays. Ask him how many minutes Mikal Bridges plays. Ask him how many minutes Cat plays. There's no team that uses their starters more than the New York Knicks. And they're up 3-1 in their second round series. I'm not saying it's nothing, but there's an over-reliance on it now in discussing the Denver Nuggets. Well, late in the game, they couldn't get shots. They couldn't get shots to begin the fourth quarter. They were tired then? That's when they were tired? David Adelman had the right idea. We got a 12-point lead. We're in a good rhythm. I'm going to start the fourth quarter with these guys. We're going to put the game away. And they didn't. Why? Because they didn't knock down shots. Open shots, good shots. Now, very late in the game, I get fatigue can become a factor. But the simple fact of the matter is no one outside Nikola Jokic could knock down shots. You tell me everyone else on the floor was tired? Everybody? I'm sure Jokic was tired. He still found a way. I'm just kind of done with they're tired. Like, I saw a team get wide open looks and not be able to hit them. That's what I saw last night. And that's why the Denver Nuggets are now in a position where their season could be over. But before they can get to game 6, which is before they can get to game 7, they got to worry about a little in-house strife. Here's story number 2.
Really, I don't feel like talking about the game. Earlier, I caught wind of an article that came out about Russell Westbrook and in our locker room after game 2, which was a completely arbitrary article and pointless and unnecessary by whoever it was that put it out. Russ is one of the most talented basketball players that has ever played the game of basketball. And quite frankly, he's been great for us all year long. We're brothers. We spend more time with our team than we do with our own family. Of course, there's going to be disagreements. But that conversation wasn't for anybody other than our own group and the internal workings.
That is Aaron Gordon.
So
he would continue on to try and put out this fire
so that
he didn't intend to start. I empathize with Aaron Gordon. He did not run to ESPN.
An even better human being.
And tell Ramona Shelburne that he had to get on Russell Westbrook a little bit after game 2 of the Clippers series. But somebody in that locker room did. And that gave way to an article on ESPN.com that Aaron Gordon felt like he didn't need to talk about anything else but that last night. And even Russell Westbrook's wife took to social media to go at Ramona Shelburne for this reporting. What is getting people up in arms is there was a quote attributed to someone not in the Nuggets locker room. And that somebody called Russell Westbrook immature. That wasn't Aaron Gordon. That wasn't anybody currently on the Denver Nuggets. It was either, I don't even know who it was. You know why? Because they were unnamed. And therein lies a big problem with sports journalism today. That as long as you trust them with being anonymous and tell them, I'm not going to put your name on it, you could say whatever you want. And because sports journalism doesn't adhere necessarily to some of the journalistic integrity that you have in news media, although even in news media, not to go too far down the road, but even news media, you see a lot of this as well. The idea that you could just flame someone and not have to put your name to it. So I understand why Russell Westbrook's wife's upset. I understand why Aaron Gordon's upset. And I wish that ESPN could just publish the story that Ramona Shelburne wrote that was actually quite spot on. The premise of it is for the Denver Nuggets to have a chance to win this series, they may have to rely on Russell Westbrook, which is what I said at the beginning of the series. So obviously I totally agree with this, and I'm a big fan of this article coming out. This is what I said at the beginning of the series. But the story's not wrong. The Nuggets have to find something somewhere. And maybe they could catch lightning in a bottle with Russell Westbrook. But the problem is, as you have seen, it can work against you. And that's the premise of this article. I don't find any inaccuracies with it. I don't find anything that incendiary. And Aaron Gordon himself is not saying that it's not true. Now, he's defending Russell Westbrook's character and maturity, which I understand, but he's not denying that there was a bit of a dust-up between the two of them, that Aaron Gordon had to call out Russell Westbrook in the locker room. He did it the right way. He did it behind closed doors. Someone snitched. So I don't have a problem with the article itself. I think the article itself brings up some salient points. That the Nuggets may need to trust Russell Westbrook, but that could be problematic. But when you throw in unnamed people, you don't even say player, you don't say coach, you just say unnamed source, and they proceed to say something quite insulting about a guy, then that's what gets people upset. And I understand that. And I agree with Russell Westbrook's wife that that was put in there in order to drive engagement. Because even though I thought the article was very well written, brought up a very good point, and is fascinating to me, it wouldn't be to the masses. So you got to throw in a little hook to get more engagement. That's exactly what Ramona Shelburne did. She knows that she did that, and it's a shame that her bosses tell her she has to do stuff like that. It is. Don't fault Aaron Gordon for being upset. I don't fault Russell Westbrook's wife for being upset. But what I can't get in line with is the idea that the whole article itself is wrong, because I don't think it is. He is an incredibly volatile player. And it is risky for the Denver Nuggets to trust him and to put their faith in him to help them win this series, but that's exactly what they might have to do. Now moving to football for story number 3, where coming up in 45 minutes, the entirety of this year's NFL schedule will be released. You could hear it right here on Extra Sports 1300. We do get some breadcrumbs. We do get some teases, right? The other day we found out that the Chiefs will be hosting the Broncos on Christmas. Now we know, according to Jordan Schultz, that the Broncos will open with the Tennessee Titans in Denver. In a more advantageous matchup I cannot think of on the potential Broncos schedule. You get your defense, which is great at creating pressure. at home against a rookie quarterback making his NFL debut. The shoe is literally on the other foot from what the Broncos had to go through last year in Seattle. That was not an easy first game for the Denver Broncos, a team breaking in a new rookie quarterback. And now they're being gifted back the ability to inflict some pain on the Tennessee Titans as they try to get Cam Ward going in his career. So the universe has corrected. Now the Broncos defense gets to pin their ears back and put all sorts of pressure on a rookie QB. And with the schedule release, that's one of the things I care about the most. I look at the first month, and then I look at rest advantage, disadvantage. When's the bye week? When are they going to have a short turnaround to a Thursday? Those kind of things matter. They matter to Sean Payton. They matter to every coach around the league. But in terms of, the Broncos finish with the Chiefs, the Jets, the Jaguar, I'm just throwing out teams. But like the idea that, down the stretch, they got 4 really difficult games. You don't know. Teams that we think are going to be good aren't. Teams that we don't think are going to be any good are. Injuries happen. I think the late part of the season, we'll check in with that about midway through and see how that's looking. But the Broncos, I think a big key for them this year, if they're going to take a step forward and if they're going to really challenge the Chiefs for the AFC West, they got to get off to a better start. They started 0-2. I think they have the chance to do that because Bo Nix won't be a rookie anymore. But if they had to go to like Arrowhead week 1 and go to Philadelphia week 2, that might be a difficult ask for them to start out of the gate faster. But now we know one game should be a win. And we'll get the rest of the schedule coming out tonight. Tells you how obsessed we are with the NFL. That's simply the order of events is interesting to us. We don't care when the Denver Nuggets play any team. They're going to play everybody. We'll get around to it sometime. We want to know the order. And we find out that tonight coming up at 6 o'clock right here on Extra Sports 1300. In the meantime, I'll take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. 719-247-1313. You know what is interesting about this Nuggets Thunder series, and by interesting I mean kind of infuriating, is that the Thunder could have every case to make that the series should already be over. Right? Game 3, game 1. They could say that this series should be over, and yet they are going to have a chance to actually win the series. That should not happen. If you're doing things to keep yourself from winning the series, or if you're saying, wow, we should be up 3-0 right now, we should be up 3-1 right now, all that kind of stuff, and that's true, but yet you're not, you should be punished for it. And you should actually end up losing the series. The Thunder, with the leads they had in games, could say that they should be up more than 3-2 right now. The series should be over. They're not entirely wrong. But then when the Nuggets don't do these things, it does cost them. Not fair. Not fair. We'll see what they have in store tomorrow night for Game 6. Biggest thing to me, supporting cast got to be better. Just point blank, period. Start there and then see what else works. We sometimes overcomplicate things. Well, who has the pressure? Who, home court advantage? Are the best players playing the best? And last night in the fourth quarter, the Thunder's best players were playing at their best, and the Nuggets' best players were not, outside of Nikola Jokic. Start there, and I think you'll like where the Nuggets end up, or they'll like where they end up. But, man, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do for that 5 spot. Christian Brown wasn't good last night offensively, but you got to give him credit for the way he's played defense against Shea in this series. Got to give him credit. Aaron Gordon's done more than enough in this series already. And then you have Jokic, and Murray, you really need him to come through in the fourth quarter, but he's done well. I don't know what you do about that 5th spot on the floor. Michael Porter last night, 1 for 7. Russell Westbrook, 1 for 7. Charles Barkley last night on TNT said, I'll always bet on the effort level of Russell Westbrook. And I don't think he meant it as a shot on Michael Porter. I just think it's how highly he thinks of Russell Westbrook. I think they're there. What am I talking about? I said after game 2, the Nuggets needed to start Russell Westbrook. So why am I acting like I'm just coming around to this idea? I was around this idea a week ago. It was for a different reason. It was to set a physical tone for game 3. But it's still, I think Russell Westbrook's got to start, and however you want to put it. I think Porter, Russ, but I can't sit here and say that I have the utmost confidence that that's the right move. Because I saw Russell Westbrook not just miss multiple 3-pointers, airball them. Corner threes, the easiest shot in basketball. He airballed. This is the predicament that David Adelman finds himself in. There are no great answers. So ultimately it comes down to who is the bigger negative, or perhaps that's not a great way to look at it. What do you want to bet on? What do you think is the better bet? They both might be losing bets, but what is the one that you would be more willing to invest in? Michael Porter shooting or Russell Westbrook's effort? I think the answer might be the latter. But it's not a great bet. Not a great one. We'll see what David Adelman decides to do tomorrow. Couple of texts here. Earlier I was talking, and I always hesitate, like nobody wants to hear anything about me in my life. But since it's sports related, I shared yesterday I went and golfed at the East Course at the Broadmoor for the USGA, had media day for the Senior Open, and I got destroyed. That course just it broke me. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I don't know how these people do it. Text coming in. Dave in Colorado Springs says, loved your Broadmoor story. I remember when I watched Bubba Watson hook his gap wedge 155 yards off the pine straw onto the green at the Masters. We all remember that, right? That was a clutch shot. At that moment, I realized that those guys are not playing the same game as I am. It was liberating. Maybe that's the way I should look at it. Like I'm playing my game. Yeah, it's a few strokes above par. It's 3 putting, but you know what? It's my game. Albert says all it takes is that one pure iron, drain a long putt, or nice drive off the tee. The rest of the shots by this hack are forgotten. And if there's good friends, cigars, and a beverage, nothing better. And that was my main point of that story, was the unnatural but also uncommon hold the sport of golf has on people that play it that no other sport does. If you played in a tackle football league tomorrow and you got lit up, your football playing days would be over. You'd be like, forget this. I'm not coming back to get destroyed again. I promise you. And there are people that love football. Trust me, if you got blown up by some 20-some-odd-year-old, D3 college player, you'd be done. You would never go back. I play a pickup game. I miss 3 shots and I give up on the sport entirely. But golf, I could have the worst round of my life and want to go back the very next day. In fact, I tell my sons regularly that I remind them how much golf time they have taken from me as I have raised them. And I will bring it up to them as I'm giving a toast at their graduations and at their weddings. I will bring up how much golf I have missed out on my life because of my children. And you might say that is not good parenting. And I would agree with you. It is great parenting. No, it is so unique that no matter what it does to me, and this probably speaks to how I am with the opposite sex when it comes to relationships, that I have this in my DNA that I can just get my butt kicked for 18 holes and be mentally, physically, and spiritually broken, and the very next day want to go back. That I might be actually, I appreciate you hearing me out on this, because I think I've made some kind of a psychological breakthrough. Maybe I'm not even talking about golf anymore. Maybe I'm talking about something much bigger in my life that golf just represents. I can't quit it. I can't quit you, golf. And yesterday, you did everything you could to break me. Not broken. I mean, I feel broken. Like, again, I cannot tell you how in pain I am right now. But go back tomorrow if I could. 719-247-1313. Come back and wrap up the show after this. New York up on Boston in game 5, 30-29, closing seconds of quarter number 1. If the Knicks win tonight, the reigning champions will be no more. And didn't have the show yesterday to really talk about the Jason Tatum injury. Like, even as the most critical people of Jason Tatum and the people that poke fun at him for, the anything is possible, or we did it, or, the texting Kobe or DMing Kobe or whatever he did, like, nobody wants to see a player. He's extremely talented. And nobody wants to see a player go down like that. Nobody wants to see these NBA playoffs get decided this way, despite what some in the media will say. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. You want to beat another team at full strength, or else you become the Toronto Raptors, and everyone will shortchange you. Everyone will call into question the legitimacy of your title. It may at the time feel good. Oh, okay, good. Best player for the other team is out. We're going to win now. But there's going to be a hollow feeling on the other end of it. So it's a shame that Jason Tatum got hurt. That's not the reason why the Celtics are down 3-1. The Knicks were going to win that basketball game. But with Jason Tatum, you feel better about the Celtics coming back from 3-1 down. I will say this, though. It would not shock me at all, beyond the fact that Boston is at home, that Boston wins tonight. And the reason why it wouldn't shock me is because they are one of the most talented teams we've seen assembled in years. And Jaylen Brown is a player that I think the most of. I think Jaylen Brown's great. And just looking at it on paper, you have Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, Drew Holiday. Yeah, they could win tonight. And then it gets a little interesting because now you're going back to MSG. Pressure on New York to end it so they don't have to go back to Boston. Yes, the Knicks will probably win this series. I felt that way after they went up 2-0. And now with Jason Tatum's injury, I think there's more of a reason to think that, but that doesn't mean it's not going to get interesting before all is said and done. So if the Knicks win tonight, they'll close it out. Same can be said for the Wolves against the Warriors. And if the Warriors are done, here's my dream scenario for the Denver Nuggets. You get Bob Myers as head coach. Steve Kerr goes to the Warriors, say this has run its course. You need a new voice. You need a new direction. Mutually agree to part ways. And Steve Kerr, with some kind of compensation, becomes the next head coach of the Denver Nuggets. Far-fetched. I acknowledge that. But that's why it's a dream scenario. I didn't call it the reality scenario. I called it the dream scenario. But even that series, too, is being decided in many ways by health. Now, I'd still take the Wolves to win the series, but why they might win tonight and close it out, no Steph Curry. This is not what we want to see. Because it just leads to second guessing and delegitimizing the result. Nobody wants to do that. So those are the games on tap tonight. Sure looks like Mikko Rantanen and the Stars are going to be playing for a little while longer as they take a 3-1 lead over the Winnipeg Jets. But Nuggets tomorrow playing for their season. Game 6 at home. We'll see if David Adelman has any tricks up his sleeve or any changes for that lineup and that personnel to try and spark something to get a win to force a Game 7, which would be on Sunday. NFL schedule release coming up at the top of the hour. You can hear it here on Extra Sports 1300. Saw this. I mean, I don't know who at Aussie NFL is, but apparently at Aussie NFL has been at this leaking or predicting the schedule. I don't know exactly what it is, but a lot of people on social media seem to believe him. This is what he has. So we know the Titans week 1 for the Broncos at home, at Colts, at Chargers, Bengals on Monday Night Football, at Eagles, at the Jets in London. We know that one. Home against the Giants, home against the Cowboys, at Houston, home against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football, home against the Chiefs. Then it's a bye week. Coming out of the bye week would be that big one with the Commanders. And we'll do this tomorrow too. Look at some of the marquee games, best games on the entire slate, but certainly on the Broncos slate. Jaden Daniels versus Bo Nix. Sign me up. I kind of wish it was earlier in the season because the Commanders and Broncos aren't competing against each other for anything. I was telling this to somebody today. I want the stuff that the matchups that are being highlighted or the matchups that we're getting early on in the season. I want it to be about preseason expectation, what happened last year. Get those out of the way early and let the new storylines kind of show through. So to me, Bo Nix versus Jaden Daniels, you could say they're two up-and-coming quarterbacks, but I want to see them early, and then I kind of want to see the new crop, the rookie quarterbacks. Will we get more than one? Going to get Cam Ward in Tennessee. Sure looks like we're going to get Tyler Shuck in New Orleans. Could there be a third in the state of Ohio? But like, I'm glad they're getting the Super Bowl rematch out of the way early, because that way it looks like it looks like a true Super Bowl rematch as much as you can get one, because the Eagles and the Chiefs right now are healthy. You want to have them that way for this highly publicized Super Bowl rematch. But it's like, get the kind of the forced storylines, or I like more divisional games later, and I like the ones that are for show out of the way early. Like Chiefs Eagles isn't going to decide anything. Let's get out of the way early. Not get out of the way like I don't want to see it. I want to see it. But let's just do that early. And then kind of allow whatever storylines are going to emerge from this NFL season to really take hold. And I think the best way to do that, more at least in conference, if not in division. If the Broncos have the Commanders this late in the season, I don't know that I like it. Then it should be like week 7. So they're saying Russ's potential return to Denver will be week 7. Rematch of that epic matchup late in the season between the Bengals and the Broncos that had all sorts of playoff implications. That will be week 4. The Thursday night game for the Broncos, at least initially, will be the Raiders. We already know about going to Arrowhead on Christmas. Travis Hunter coming to Denver late in the year, according to this. We'll see if this holds up. But those are some of the games that we'll certainly be talking about tomorrow. We'll just know for sure when they'll be. So that's coming up here at the top of the hour. So that, a lot of Game 6 talk as well as it pertains to the Denver Nuggets. Last word today will go to Tom. Well, it'll go to me because I'm answering Tom. But Tom's text, why would you want Steve Kerr? He's just a balancer of egos like Phil Jackson. Nuggets aren't that talented. Well, no, they're not as talented as the Bulls, but that's exactly what I want. As a coach, that's exactly what the Nuggets need. Just got done talking about Russell Westbrook and everything that's happening with him. I do want a psychiatrist. As far as the premise that the Nuggets aren't that talented, certainly they're not as talented as those Bulls teams. We all can acknowledge that. But that's for the general manager, which is the position that I'm more interested in. Like, they have to get that right more than they have to get the coach right. But I actually think that kind of a coach, I think David Adelman, in allowing the players to lead themselves a little bit more, has kind of played that role of kind of a psychiatrist. Like, you guys take ownership. You figure it out. I actually think that's the kind of coach that the Nuggets need now. But they need a general manager to figure out how to get out of this quagmire where you have so many highly paid players. And you have Christian Brown, who's soon going to be handsomely compensated. Like, the general manager job is the one they have to get more right for me, where the Denver Nuggets are right now. They got to get GM right. But I do think that they need a little less X's and O's and a little bit more managing. I don't want to say managing of egos. More psychiatry, I suppose. Get this team to be motivated more during the regular season than they seem to be. But allowing them, like David Adelman has, to kind of take the reins a little bit more and be a much more player-led team. And I think Steve Kerr would bring that. So I get what you're saying, and you're not wrong about the Nuggets' talent relative to the great Chicago Bulls teams. But that's exactly why I want Steve Kerr. But the general manager has the difficult job. The general manager has the job to try and figure out where to move forward. And I've said this. I don't know if they're going to move any of these core four guys. I don't think they can move Michael Porter, and I don't think like, if I told you tomorrow that Aaron Gordon was going to get traded, how would you feel about that? Given everything he's done in these playoffs. Would you trade Jamal Murray? Given some of the performances he's had? Yeah, fourth quarter last night, not great. Maybe a little bit easier to say yes today. But look at him throughout the playoffs. How do you improve this team if you're not touching those four guys? Not my problem. I mean, I'll talk about it, but it's not my job description to figure it out. But there will be time for that. The Nuggets have at least one more game. And if they win tomorrow night, they're going to have at least one more after that. And that's what we will focus on. Game 6 tomorrow night, 6:30. Those of you who have been not happy with how late these games are will be thrilled to hear that the game will tip off. Let's call it 7. But it's scheduled for 6:30 tomorrow. And we'll be talking about that, the NFL schedule release, and whatever else may come about between now and 3 o'clock. Appreciate you tuning in. Talk tomorrow.